Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Leila and I'm a certified permaculture designer. I have started up this company, Urban Roots Permaculture. What I do is that I set up food forests in people's backyards and front yards and in urban areas. I'm also a Master's of Environmental Studies student at York University. As part of my studies, I'm helping out Black Creek Community Farm with presentations like this, hoping to get people more familiar with the idea of permaculture and how it can help us to move on from the problems that we're having into a better world. So what is permaculture? Permaculture is a design process for building a regenerative lifestyle by mimicking natural ecosystems. So permaculturists look at the forests and try to learn from it and implement that system into a food forest, which actually can, on top of all the benefits that forests have, also feed people. So it comes from the two words permanent agriculture. It was started like in 1970s in Australia by a guy called Bill Mollison. But the more I studied about it and the deeper I went, the more I found out that it's really not a new idea. So when you look at the indigenous ways of growing food, not just here in North America or Americas in general, but anywhere, because I come from Iran, I come from Middle East, and a lot of the ideas are similar to what I have seen in rural areas in my country. So it's really an ancient way of growing food. And it's not just about food, it's about energy and society. And, well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but then for like maybe less than 100 years, because of the Industrial Revolution, we have changed ways very quickly and we have started to do things in a different way. And then now people like permaculturists are starting to think, okay, maybe it's better to think about what we're doing and look at more indigenous ways of dealing with production of food and nature. So they then started this idea, like this design process called permaculture, coming from the two words, permanent agriculture. And then after a while, since it was permanent agriculture because agriculture was at the center of it, but the more that it evolved, now people are saying that it's actually from the two words permanent and culture, because there's a lot more into permaculture than just food. So when you think about the word permanent, a lot of people start thinking immediately about sustainability. Permanency and sustainability usually come together when you think about the word permanent. But as one of my professors at York University very wisely said, when you're sustaining something, when you talk about sustainability, you have to think, what is it you're sustaining? Because sustainability could mean keep it the same, not keeping it from getting worse, which is good. We don't want to let things get worse. But we have to think, is that enough? Because what is it that we're sustaining? If this is what we're sustaining, a lot of climate change, poverty, pollution, contamination. So we have to think, is sustaining this going to solve any of our problems, or is it going to prevent any of our future problems? And in my opinion, that's not the case. So the word permanent in the permaculture is not really about, it's not about sustainability. It is about sustainability, but it goes beyond sustainability. So and to me, that word is more about regenerativeness. So in permaculture, we renew things, we recreate, we rethink. So if there's a process in our society, in our educational system, in the way that we grow food, in is not regenerative. That has to be rethought. And embracing change is part of it. So the word permanent usually doesn't bring the word change into your mind, but ironically, in the context of permaculture, we really focus on change. So permaculturists are systems thinkers. So they look at the whole world as a system, and then the earth being a subsystem of that system, and everything on earth is a subsystem of its own, and everything is related and everything interacts with each other and affect each other, and everything is changing all the time. Like our bodies are changing, our societies are changing, our kids are changing, our environment changes all the time, the trees, the seasons, everything. Although sometimes like the seasons look like a repeat, but every year you look at it and it's a different story. It's not exactly the same as last year. So everything is constantly changing, and embracing this change is part of the permanency that we want to create. Like it might be a little bit confusing to some people, but embracing change is very important in the context of permaculture. Now, as I said, permaculturists look at the forests, at the ecosystem of natural forests, and they ask these questions. Does anybody maintain the forest? Anybody, like any human being? Does anyone weed it, fertilize it, do pest control, animal control? Not really. It's a self-sustaining ecosystem. So, and all the species that are living in forests, is the forest providing for them? Yes, it is. So not only is sustaining itself, but, well, we cannot really separate all the species that live in the forest from the forest, but, to keep it to make it simple so that we can talk about it easily, the forest is providing for everything that's living on it, and without any human intervention. So can we actually look at this system, learn from it, and apply this into a food forest that not only after like 2 or 3 years that we set it up, obviously it's a lot of work at first when you set it up, a lot of design and thinking and a lot of reflecting and redoing and changing, embracing the change, and all of that happens in this 2 or 3 or maybe 4 or 5 years. But then after that, if it's set up properly, it's supposed to work exactly as a natural forest and provide food for us without us having to go in constantly and put input in. Input in terms of labor, in terms of money, in terms of material. So it's supposed to be self-sufficient after a while, which is very different, completely different from the way we are doing agriculture today, which is a constant, work and energy and money that we have to put into it. So that's essentially the idea. And the word agriculture, well, obviously I don't have to convince you at all that the way we're doing it, which it shows in the pictures down here, is not even sustainable. Like, forget about regenerativeness. It's not even sustainable. Because we have monocultures, and we are depleting the soil, we are polluting the atmosphere and the water. We are, like, freshwater crisis is a huge problem these days. Many problems. We're treating the animals that we eat just like horribly, and there's a lot of problems with this system. And on top of that, it's not sustainable. We cannot keep doing this because there's no way that in a finite planet we can do a linear system like this and expect it to work. So the agriculture context in permaculture is more like what you see above, which is not a monoculture. It is a yielding is an idea of permaculture. We're going to talk about it a little bit further. So again, the idea of creating the permanency in agriculture is at the core of permaculture. Now I'm taking this as a very famous picture, and it's from this book, Permaculture Principles and Pathway Beyond Sustainability by David Holmgren. I do recommend the book. It's a very good one if you haven't read it yet. And you see it says beyond sustainability. It's the idea of sustainability is not enough. We have to move beyond it. We have to be regenerative. And these are the ethics and principles of permaculture. The ethics are at the core of everything a permaculturist does. It has to be caring for the earth, caring for people, and sharing the surplus. And then we have the principles, and all the techniques and everything that we do in the design comes from these ethics and principles. So now I'm going to go not very deep in any one of these. If you had any questions about any specific one, we can talk after. If you had questions right now, we can talk too. But if we found that it would take longer than our patience, then we can talk about it after. So, but I'm going to touch on them like one by one, in order to, on the very high level, we get familiar with them. So number one is observe and interact. So that is something that unfortunately in our dominant culture, especially in urban areas, has been not happening. Especially like I have two kids and in urban areas, like they're inside the home, and then, well, I have a garden and I try to, send them out there and, bring nature into their lives as much as possible. But a lot of the kids, unfortunately, don't have a lot of that. Like they live in an apartment and then they move from the apartment to the school, which doesn't have a lot of nature going on, and then back to the apartment. And they go apple picking once a year, and that's all the connection that they have with nature. They have no opportunity to observe nature and interact with it, which is a huge problem, but also for us. And that's a very important, like the whole idea of learning from natural forests has to start with observing it and interacting with it. So that's and it also, if you have a garden or a guild, like permaculturists say, we don't grow gardens, we grow guilds. But anyway, if you have a garden and you don't observe it and you don't interact with it constantly, you miss problems very quickly. But if you're observing it, as soon as a pest shows up, you know it's there. As soon as disease shows up, you know it's there, and you can deal with it as soon as you see it, and it does not become a huge problem. So there's a lot. Again, every one of these principles is a lot deeper, and if you want to understand it and learn about it, please go and read about it. I really encourage you. Catch and store energy. Now, energy is huge, especially for us in this system that we've built. There's a lot of problems that's we all know about, producing energy and all the problems with oil, like oil and coal and all of that. And we're trying to move away from it. It's not very easy to do. So energy is the basis of everything we do. And if we can catch and store as much of that energy as possible, obviously it's beneficial for us. So in your environment, in your guild or in your garden, there's always energy coming and passing through. There's energy of the sun, there's energy of the wind, water has energy. The animals that interact with your garden come and go. They bring energy you bring energy to your garden with the labor that you do, and different other kinds of energy, positive and negative energy. So if you can catch and store that energy and use it so that instead of the wind passing through and destroying your garden, if you design your garden in a manner that it catches that energy, uses it for your benefit, that's the difference. The water, the same. The sun, the same idea. So there's a lot of techniques in permaculture. For example, we trap, we create heat traps. So we put trees, for example, that will grow tall in a certain area that we know that the sun will hit it and and trap the heat, which would help us extend the season. So there's a lot of techniques in permaculture that helps you catch and store energy. Obviously, rain barrels is a very obvious, easy one. Plants that would catch and store the water in the soil, for example, is another one. Instead of the grass, we were just talking about grass and how all the problems with it. Anyway, so number 3 is obtaining yield. Obviously, food is at the center of all of this, but yield has many different types and sorts. It's not just food. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback. Unfortunately, again, in the dominant culture these days, we just want success, and we want it fast, and we want a big success. That's not how nature works. And it is very important to learn that if we fail, I mean, whatever we wanted to do looks like a failure, there's nature trying to tell us something. And if we can observe that, learn from it, it's going to help us, not to, okay, I failed, let's give up. I'm a loser, all the stereotypes and all the, social, problems that we have. That's not how it works. That's not how permaculture works. We don't set up a garden and it's successful right away. No, we're interacting, observing and interacting with nature. And if nature is telling us that this is not the way you do it here, because it shows us the result is not what we expected, we learn from it, we accept the feedback from nature, and move on. Use and value renewable resources and services, very important one. Well, they're all important. It's not like any of these is more important than the others. Renewable resources and services are all different kinds. We talked about the energy that comes into your place, and a lot of them are renewable, resources. But especially when it comes to plants, instead of this, like our agriculture is a lot, unfortunately, about annuals, annual vegetables and annual grains, and which means that every year we have to put a lot of effort in. But when you look at natural forests, again, going back to the idea of natural forests, not a lot of, you don't see annuals at all. Like you do see annuals, but they're self-seeding annuals. So you either get perennials or self-seeding annuals, which helps the natural ecosystem to maintain itself without somebody having to go and do it. Unfortunately, and that's because of our market economy, which is another topic of its own, and we're not going to get into that. We have our food. First of all, our food is very limited right now, which is unfortunate. Hi, please welcome. Yes, good. Which is very unfortunate, but we are very much used to, the annuals. And I think I read somewhere, and don't quote me on these numbers, but I think I read somewhere that like 80% of our calories come from only 15 plants, like 1-5. And even those 15 plants, like for example, you look at wheat as one of those 15 plants, it's only specific types of wheat, like not all of them, not all of the wheat that at some point in time existed. So we are losing, and as a species, that is dangerous. Like it's really dangerous. We don't want to become the what's it called, the animal? The bear. Panda. Couldn't come up with the name. Like we don't want to become the panda that only eats one type of bamboo, and it's becoming extinct. It's really dangerous. Like only 15 plants, and only specific types of those plants. Anyway. So in terms of renewable resources and services, if we start going back to perennial plants and more varieties of them, and seeds are another renewable resource. saving seasons and all that. Like, there's a lot of concepts hidden behind every one of these principles. And again, I encourage you to go and look into them. Then that will be beneficial for us as a species. Produce no waste. There is no waste in nature. It just does not exist. There is no waste. All those, going back to the idea of systems thinking, when you look at all these systems and subsystems that exist in the world, waste of a subsystem is food to another subsystem in nature. And that's one of the important parts of it being renewable and it being, able to maintain itself. So we use the same concept in terms of taking the waste of a subsystem and using it in, and that's why a worm is I'm sure that everybody, as soon as seeing a worm, you think about compost and vermicomposting and all of that. Because simply, if you produce waste, then that waste starts to become a problem that you have to now put energy and money and all of that into it in order to take care of that waste. But if you can use that, if you look at waste as a food for another subsystem, then you don't have a problem. You actually have a solution. That's one of the concepts that the problem is the solution. So plastic, styrofoams, those are, wrong. Wrong, because looking at those are problems that now we don't know how to solve. Why? Because we created waste, and we didn't think about what are we going to do with this waste. So that's one of the important aspects. So permaculture, design from pattern to details. So I'm not going to get into a lot because this is going to get more into the design, and it's deeper and it takes a long time. But essentially, we look at the patterns in nature, and we try to mimic them. And we also look at the patterns of our lives, the pattern of, the sun pattern in your farm, the wind patterns, like which direction do they come in, how can I, catch and store that energy, the pattern of animals passing through, like we have this raccoon that seriously every night, at certain time, probably in 1 hour, a specific hour at night, he or she comes and, where me and my husband is sitting and watching something, we hear him or her from the wall behind us, bumps a bunch of stuff that we have there, and then he goes, I have this mulch path that goes from the gate all the way to my compost bin at the back. So he goes, or she, every time goes through that, loves the path, does not go outside the path, loves my path. So goes, it's really interesting, goes exactly through that path, jumps on top of my compost bin and goes to the neighbor. Every night. I don't know why, but this is really, really interesting. So animals have patterns that pass through your space, and you can use those in designing, reflecting on your design. And do I want to change this? Do I not want to change this? Is there any way that I can use it for my benefit that doesn't harm the animal at the same time? So all of that. Your life patterns as well. If I pass, there's this concept in permaculture, zoning. I'm sure you've heard about it. Zone 0 is inside your home, and zone 1 is your immediate access. So it could be a patio that you have that's close to gardens. It could be at the front, the path that you go to work and come back every day. So the patterns of your life. If you are a 9-to-5er, for example, that is a certain pattern in your life, which is worth paying attention to. Because if you put, for example, your, cherry tomatoes that need a lot of attention, back in the corner of your yard that you never passed by, if there's any problems there, you're not going to see it. But if you put it right beside the path that you pass by it every day, then you'll see it. If there's a pest, if there's a disease, and you'll attend to it pretty quickly. If you put usually we put the compost bins at least in zone 3. But what I did actually, looking at the patterns of my life and what I wanted to do with my food waste, I actually set up a compost bin right beside my patio door for winter time. Because I knew I wanted to keep the waste. I knew it was going to freeze, but then I knew that in spring and summer, then it's going to warm up, and that's all resource. I didn't want to give away that resource, so I wanted to keep it. But I knew that cold really bothers me, and I hate going through snow. So what did I do? So looking at the patterns of my life, I knew that I had to have something right beside my patio door. So all I do, and I have a jacket right beside it. So what I do in winter time, wear the jacket, open the patio door, open the compost bin, and put them there, and close the door. There you go. And now, so I designed it in a way that it works with the patterns in my life, and now I can keep it. Like, these are just examples, but this is important. Integrate rather than segregate. We keep segregating. Like, we are separate from nature. We're not. Like, we think we are separate from nature. We segregate ourselves from nature. And this is not just about gardening and gardens and agriculture. It's everywhere in our social life. All the isms that separate us from each other. The racism and sexism and all the religions. And so you are in a different group than I am, so I am segregated from you. And it creates a lot of problems in our society. We do it the same thing in our agriculture. So we take a whole huge field, we eliminate nature from there, we destroy everything, and we plant corn. One type of plant. And then we are surprised why problems start to come in. So I heard somebody once said, nature is a dictatorship. It is, whether you like it or not. It's not going to change its ways just because it's not a democracy. You have to apply, you have to comply with nature. Otherwise you're going to have problems. And whether you like it or not, you have to accept that. So you tell nature, I don't need you, go away. I know how to deal with my corn in this field. And then you put a feast of one type of plant for a specific type of pest. And guess what? They come and attack. And since you eliminated nature from your farm, there is nothing to keep that pest in check. Nature is like, you don't need me, then you don't need me. You eliminate me, so there's nothing that I can bring to the table to help you. So what do I have to do now? I have to spray. And we get into this constant fight with nature. Now, we put that corn there and nothing else that can put anything that corn's taking out of the soil back into the soil. No other nature. And then it starts to deplete our soil. What do we have to do now? We have to fertilize it. And for all of those sprays and pesticides and fertilizers and all of the things that we have to have in order to fight nature, we have to now have oil and coal and energy problems, and it's just like, it's a never-stopping, never-ending problem. And that comes from the idea of segregating things. And in permaculture, we do it the other way around. We create guilds. We put plants together in a manner that they help each other. We're going to talk about that later. Use small and slow solutions. Again, in our dominant culture, we want success, fast and big. And well, if you fail, your failures are going to come faster and they're going to be bigger. But looking and observing nature and the way nature works, we see that nature takes its time, no matter how patient you want to be or not. Worms their time to do the composting for you. Seeds take their time to germinate and grow. Like, no matter how fast you want them to do it, that's not the way. Nature is dictatorship, right? That's not the way nature does it, no matter what we want. So employ the smaller and slower solutions. It's going to be a lot more successful if you do that. Value, use and value diversity. Again, diversity comes, in contrast with, segregating and, having like a monoculture, for example. Diversity is important in our social aspect of life, not just food, like everything. Again, I encourage you to look into these a little bit deeper. I don't want to bore you with all this. So use edges and value marginals. Edge is another very interesting concept. If you look at the forest, and let's say if you have a forest and you have a field right in front of your forest, the edge between the forest and the field is a very interesting place. A lot of magic happens in the edge. There's a lot of species that cannot survive or live inside the forest and cannot survive or live in the field either. In the edge, you get only certain plants that will not survive anywhere else. So we actually value those edges and we try to work with it in our designs. An increasing edge increases the magic. So if you only have straight rows, there's not much edge going on there. But if you have curves and if you have circles and if you look at the natural patterns, again talking about the patterns, as you can see, this like that web has lots of edge. If your gardens are like, we have this herb spiral, for example, looking at the spiral pattern that exists in a lot of places in nature. Spiral gardens, herb gardens, have a lot of edge, which then, again, that's a little bit deeper in design, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Creatively use and respond to change. Again, going back to the idea of permanency in the context of permaculture, it comes from change and embracing change. And we should move on. Since this workshop was about the food forest that Black Creek Community Farm is trying to set up here, I thought it would be interesting to talk about guilds a little bit. This is just one concept in permaculture which is very important, like central to a lot of the design ideas. A guild is a group of carefully selected plants, animals and insects and other natural components that work together and help each other in function and form to survive. So this is the idea opposite to the idea of monoculture, which is only one plant. So there are 7 different layers in permaculture in terms of form. So we're talking about form and function. In terms of form, there are 7 different layers. The overstory or the canopy, the understory. Then we have the shrub layer, the herbs layer, and then the root layer, and then the soil, and then verticals that go up. So in a very small space, you can have all of these forms of plants, which have different roots in terms of depth and width. That actually helps them not to compete in terms of the soil level, and also in terms of height outside, like above the soil, they have different heights. So if sun is, if this is south, for example, all of these plants will get enough sun. Now, if you have some plants that you don't want, like they're not sun tolerant plants, then you put them under here on the side that it gets less sun. Or so we work in terms of form, looking at the energy that's in the space and the root levels of the plants and their heights and everything. And you can grow a lot of food in a very small area of land using this method of yielding. And in terms of function, there are different things that we put together, as I said, to help each other. So plants that attract bees to pollinate your fruit tree, for example. Plants that attract humans, because if you're not there, you won't observe and you won't see the problems and you can't deal with them. Dynamic accumulators are nutrient providers. Dynamic accumulators are mostly the plants that have tap roots, deep tap roots. They go into the subsoil and they gather nutrients and they bring it up to use for themselves, and they also make it available to plants that have shallow roots and their roots are on in the topsoil. A lot of these dynamic accumulators are, unfortunately, in our dominant culture, called weeds. Like dandelion, for example, is one of the dynamic accumulators that, like, I think comfrey and dandelion, those are the two that I don't know which one to love more. They're wonderful plants. I think dandelion accumulates like 8 or 9 different nutrients, like calcium and magnesium, this and that. It's just wonderful. First of all, they're very good for us if we eat them. They're filled with nutrients that our bodies require, and they're very good to have them in a guild because they actually provide for the other plants that don't have those deep roots to go into the subsoil and accumulate them. Nitrogen fixers. So nitrogen is something we all know that a lot of plants need, some of them a lot of. There is abundance of nitrogen in the world, but it's mostly in the form of gas, which the plants cannot use. So nitrogen fixer plants are the ones that they actually become friends. They have a symbiotic relationship with the type of bacteria in the soil, and with the help of bacteria, I think they provide sugar to the bacteria, and what the bacteria does, it helps them to get this nitrogen from the air and put it in these nodules in their soil, in the roots in the soil, which then they can use themselves. And for example, when you prune that plant, it sheds, first of all, and if you mulch whatever you prune on your soil, at the same time when you prune it, it lets go of some of its roots, and all the nitrogen actually becomes available to all the other plants that are surrounding it. Anyway, so nitrogen fixers are another very good category to put in your guild. Pest repellents, there are things like mint and oregano and lavender that repel pests. Insectaries, there's none here. Well, it says bee attractants, but insectary plants are the ones who attract beneficial insects and animals to your guild. Like bulbs, for example, to suppress the grass, like daffodils and tulips, and if you want edible, like garlic. And the tree itself, which is in the middle, and vegetables. So we put all of these together. Like, I have 4 fruit trees in my backyard. Only one of them I got the chance, busy life, I got the chance to put a comfrey in its guild. Seriously, it's doing better. Like, this is not scientific fact. Like, I didn't do empirical research. I don't have the proof. But I look at my trees. They were the same size and healthy, almost the same. And the one that has comfrey is seriously growing much better, like taller and stronger and disease-free, and it's just doing much better. Like healthier leaves, healthier fruit, bigger fruit. Yeah. So this is the idea of guild, and I know that Anna is hoping to put together guilds, hopefully in spring. This, if you want to learn about guilds, actually the Midwest Permaculture, if you go to their website and you go to, free stuff and Plant Guilds booklet, they have a free PDF booklet that actually gives you examples of guilds that they have tried and they trust. Obviously, this idea of guilding is fairly new. There are guilds that permaculturists have suggested, like Apple Guild is a very famous one. You can quickly find out what to put in the guild of your apple, but for the other ones, it's just an experiment that keeps going on, and people keep coming up with their own experience in publications like this and say, okay, I did these guilds and this is how it helped me and it was useful. Obviously, a lot more research has to go into the idea of the guild, but it's an interesting concept that I encourage you to look into, or if you're researchers, and even better, research a little bit of it. And that's it. So any questions, anything we can help you with? Again, I'm going to be sticking around to help out on the garden, so we can talk after.
Thank you, Leila. It was a very nice presentation, and I learned a lot.
Okay, good. Because I was like looking at the people, and I know a lot of you are like, these guys are going to get bored. They already know about all this. So I'm happy to hear that. Okay, thank you.